Hello and welcome to Higher Thinking on Higher Ed. I am Charlene Carrington of Content Strong Communications, the communications and marketing leader of choice for universities, colleges, and nonprofits. And today I am excited to continue diving into these trends and the challenges encountered by leaders in higher ed. I am so honored to welcome Justin Brown to the hot seat today. Justin is the Associate Vice President for Student Affairs and Chief Diversity Officer at Charleston Southern University, where he champions student growth, leadership development, and inclusive campus culture. And with over a decade of higher education, athletics, and ministry, he is widely recognized for his work in organizational leadership, student success, and his inspiring Go One More philosophy on perseverance. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Justin. I know for everyone who wasn't with us a few minutes ago, we were just talking about how it's, mid-August right now. So it's a mad dash in post-secondary. Thank you for taking the time, Justin.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, good. Well, for my first question is always set the context a little bit for me. I had a bit of a chance there to kind of give everyone a bit of a background on what it is that you do, but
Mhm.
really, and as you mentioned before we even started the recording, things are moving. There's a lot of strategic planning and alignment and stuff happening behind the scenes as everyone ramps back for students to kind of to come back on campus. Tell me a little bit about, all of that, how are strategic planning, let's say, and innovation really kind of being aligned at your institution right now, and what role does maybe your office play in driving some of that alignment?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very fitting question for the time. So we're actually going through the process of creating our next strategic plan, as our current strategic plan is about to run its course here at the end of this academic year. And so,
Okay.
in the process of that, working on one of the committees for that process, and so it's going really well, as a strategic planning process does. Some great meetings, some combative meetings, right? Everybody's got opinions and strong ideas from each side, right? Faculty and staff side. And so it's been a good process this specific time, just because I think being here, I've only been at Charleston Southern for about a year. And being here, it does, what I can say is, it does seem like across the campus, university wide, of faculty, staff, or different areas, right? Even athletics, academic, student life, right? There seems to be an alignment with understanding who we are as a university and where we want to see this university go. And so I think specifically from our area, the value we add to those committees, or even to say myself, is we're coming in, and from a student standpoint, right, we're able to speak from what the students are wanting and desire. What are the issues we're facing in dealing with students, right? Obviously, the big word that is heavy among everywhere is retention, right?
Right.
How are we going to increase that retention rate here? And so being able to speak and advocate for our students, and make sure that their voice is heard, and on those different committees. So make sure, as we're thinking strategically as a university of what we want to implement, how we want to do things, right, making sure that we are speaking for our students who aren't necessarily in those meetings. But I tell people all the time, higher ed is, it's a community, it's a customer service business, right?
Yep.
And our customer is the student, right? And so the old adage about customer service is, the customer is always right. And so if we're not making sure the customer is at the forefront of our strategic planning, then we're going to be missing something here.
I think I got so much from what you just said and so many different directions I want to take this conversation in already. I mean, the piece about, and this is really interesting that you say that, this idea of the student is the customer.
Mhm.
Some institutions would argue that a tooth and nail, well, yeah, the student's the customer, but the donors are customers too. And
Mhm.
this person's the customer. And then our employers are over here and we're trying to make it, partnerships with employers out here. They're also the
Absolutely.
customers in this way, blah, blah, blah. So I love the way that you've positioned that so clearly. I think at the beginning of this conversation really sets the tone for, I think, likely kind of where your institution's mindset is. Once
Mhm.
again, that really you're trying to create experiences for students, right? The second question I always ask is around what's going on in the sector. And I think thinking about that as kind of the backdrop of the way your institution kind of aligns themselves and does their planning. Tell me a little bit about what trends and what shifts you're kind of seeing in broader higher ed, and what do you believe that's the most crucial or critical for institutions like CSU, for example, to address now? How are you guys responding to that, and where does the student success and student experience piece kind of fit in?
Yeah. I mean, just quite honestly, there's legislation coming every other day that's
Yeah.
shifting higher ed in so many different directions. I mean, it's almost. I literally was in my bed last night. And sometimes when I come across articles, I just put them in my browser on my phone so I can get to them later if I don't have time. And I had 10 saved in my phone that I was trying to read last night when I laid down. I didn't get through all of them, but you just see so many different trends. I mean, obviously, like I mentioned, retention is the big thing. I think everybody is seeing kind of a drop in retention rates, and some of the
Right.
schools that are doing it really well are seeing a hike in that, or it's really almost at a space of like really just trying to maintain and how are universities able to do that and keep the students there. The innovation piece is very important to that, right? Because it's no matter what we want to present from a sense of like what we offer as a university, and this is from my coaching days. We learned this very much so in recruiting. The first thing that matters, and really almost, and it's not, I'm not saying it's fair or it's right, but the real thing that matters the most is what students see, right? And so
Mhm.
it was very important for us when we brought student athletes on campus, like what is the thing that they're seeing? And so, I can say like some of the stuff that we're doing here, we've had a lot of renovation projects. We've shifted how we're doing some of our things as far as our even our cafeteria, where usually it's been like a common swipe your card. Right now we got stalls installed where they can tap, and it's not necessarily different. It just looks better, right? It's
Right.
more pleasing to the eye, and so students are loving those kind of things. I also think it's just creating different opportunities for students and think about higher ed different. So one of the things we did in this last year is we just purchased a flight school, aeronautics school, and so we're
Okay.
one of two schools in South Carolina that offers that, and it is a unique opportunities for students to come to our university and really step into that vocation as something they want to do long term. And so, thinking outside of the traditional higher ed box, because what you are seeing, and this is a podcast I was listening to earlier, AI is taking over a lot of jobs, right?
Yes, I heard that.
And so you got to come along with that trend. Like you can't. It's almost like we have me and my wife have two young girls. It's almost like you can't keep the iPads and stuff away from them, or they're going to be behind all of the other students when they actually get to school. And so
Hmm.
I think the same thing in higher ed. We can't keep. I know some of our faculty members are opposed to AI, but it's like we can't take that away. We just have to think innovatively how we instruct them to use it in the right way in order to advance their careers and things of that nature. But also making sure we're preparing them and giving them the opportunity to take on vocations and jobs that necessarily AI may not necessarily be able to take over. Right? I feel good about my job because AI can't do necessarily what I do in that
Right.
in-person kind of deal. And so just making sure we're preparing our students on both sides of that, right, to be able to utilize AI, but also to stay ahead of it. So you're occupying spaces that it can't you generally come in and take over.
So picking up on that thread there, and certainly this is something everyone is talking about
Oh
for
yeah.
obvious reasons. But you talked about you guys are thinking about your new strategic plan right now, and you're in the middle of having these conversations and trying to finalize that. How does this huge shift, this AI shift, in terms of the way faculty are using it, the way people are figuring out how it goes into their programming for students themselves, and the way you're really positioning or allowing students to use it in their schooling and their day-to-day lives, or encouraging, maybe allow is the wrong word, encouraging them to use it. How do you foresee that being built into kind of your institution's strategic plan, or even in the stuff that you guys do day to day?
Yeah, I think what the conversation right now is making sure that we're utilizing it in places where we need to utilize it. So I talked about kind of what we're doing in the cafeteria and doing some of those deals. Also, I think being very intentional in our student success space of how do you use AI, not in a way, because I think what it comes onto the scene, right? You don't know how to use it, and students are just using it to write papers, right? They're just
Right.
putting their stuff in there, letting it write paper, and it's going to get flagged immediately, right? So, what are some of the more intentional ways you can use it where it's not writing your paper, but maybe it's helping you inspiring some of your thoughts and ideas in order to give you a fully thought out paper that you can write on your own without utilizing that specifically? It's studies are also coming in that are showing, this article I was reading the other day, that people who overuse AI, like their thought processes are starting
Yes,
to diminish
of course.
because you're not necessarily thinking through things. And I think the absolute staple of what higher ed is and what it is about is the ability to critically think, right? That's why you come to an institution of higher education, is because you're trying to figure out, how do I critically think about this? That's the difference between, high school and higher ed. High school, they're just telling you you're learning information, kind of regurgitating. In higher ed, it's like, hey, let's critically think about this and write a paper, right?
Right.
That's the whole purpose. So how do we continue to help them think critically without just fully giving their thoughts and ideas to something to come up with those critical thoughts devoid of their own thoughts themselves?
I think, I was also listening to a podcast just recently about the same thing, this idea that, thinking about art specifically, about
Mm,
how, when you're creating something, you have to go through the process to get to its best place.
yeah,
And higher ed is the same way, right? You go through that 4 year, sometimes longer process when you start school to the end of it. And when you come out of it, you have, yeah, this piece of paper here, but what you really gained was all of what you learned, the rigor of education throughout the 4 year process of completing it.
yeah,
So if you remove the process, you will never end up at the same place with the same ability to produce, the same ability to do, and the same ability to think, as you rightfully said. I think about, from your perspective, from a student success lens, right? Really
mhm,
trying to make sure that you can help the student be successful, number one, and stay there, because you talked about this idea
yeah.
of retention, making sure that they feel supported. Do you see any, and I may be putting you on the spot a little bit, do you see any I don't know, avenues or strategies or different ways you could potentially use AI in the future to help support that? And this is less so of a, yeah, they're using it to write a paper, and more
Right.
so of a, are there different ways or mechanisms that even in the way you provide support and the way you provide answers to questions and the way you, I don't know, other ways that you could support students to make sure that they are successful at the end of it using AI?
Yeah, I think definitely. And so we have student life, and then we have a student success department here at the university, and so they're diving into some of that conversation now about how are we utilizing AI in a sense of what you're saying to help students be more successful at the university overall. What are the different tools that are available out there? What can we utilize to push them to that 4 year success, 4 to 6 year success rate that every institution is looking for? So I personally have not dove into that a whole bunch and dealt with that much, but we do have an area that deals with that. And it is the question, right? I think AI is here and AI is here to stay, right?
Yeah.
There is no life without it. And if you don't like it, then it's kind of like get with it or get lost, right?
Yeah.
It's it's one of those things. But people, we have to learn how to utilize it in the most beneficial way to us. Yeah.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about obviously about student success in terms of retention. So
Mhm.
the obviously retention, I would assume, is a big key metric for you. You guys are looking to see how long they stay with the university. Are they getting to the graduation rate, the
Mhm.
graduation day? Tell me a little bit about kind of what else you're measuring. Are you measuring what else are your big key metrics look like, and what are you hoping to kind of drive forward?
Yeah. So one of the areas I oversee is obviously student conduct, right? So in student conduct, we're starting to not starting to, but you see a relationship between student conduct and retention rates, right?
Right.
Um, you're seeing the mental health aspect of things, right? Mental health, our mental health institution fits um, under my supervision
Portfolio.
as well. And so you see kind of how these things are related. So looking at how we are, and this has been a big thing for me in this year, how are we helping to um, think of student conduct more of a restorative practice
Right.
as opposed to kind of that punitive practice, right? So it's not a fact of, hey, come in here and we just want to give you a sanction and punish you. Because generally, right, you're going to, not to use like, using prison terms, right? You have that recidivism rate, right? It's just going to turn back. You're going to have that same student back in there. And so how are we looking at that and training and instructing those students differently when they come in there? Because there is that direct correlation between some of those that those behavior issues and even those mental health issues, even how students are going to class. And so we have a bid care team, right? And so our bid care team is looking at, and we're getting flagged by students who may have had some disciplinary issues, who may have
Right.
missed a couple classes. And so now we can come in and intervene at an early rate. And so once you intervene and now you're able to address some of these issues, because a lot of it is, hey, I'm just having issues at home and it's causing
Right.
other issues here at the forefront of what we're doing, of what I'm trying to do as a student. And so if we can get to the front end of that, and help on some of that, I mean, even thinking through the process. I mean, retention is connected to so many ways, right?
Right.
And I try to impress upon people, retention is not an academic thing. It's not a student life thing. It's a university thing. And so we're all responsible for retention. And so anytime it's increased or decreased, that's everybody's responsibility. And so one of the things I was just looking at was how hunger, right? Students not
Right.
being able to feed themselves is also hurting retention, right? And so, what are some universities doing? One of the big issues with the new plan coming out is SNAP benefits, right? So, SNAP benefits are going to be taken away from a lot of people, and there are a lot of people who use those during their college years in order to have food for grocery, have money for
Right.
groceries and things of that nature. So thinking through, and this is what our team is thinking through, do we need to create a food pantry for our students just to make sure that they have those basic needs available, clothing closets and things of that nature? The simple necessities that are having an effect on that retention rate are the things that we are looking at addressing, that are some points that people may miss but are very integral in that.
I love that you brought that up because I think it stresses a completely different piece that I think people miss when we're having these conversations is the
Mhm.
idea that you need to look at the big picture. Like the end result of, oh, are the students staying there is not a result of one thing. That's the entire holistic approach to
Yeah,
everything, the entire experience and the entire support system that is or is
yeah,
not available for a student. But beyond that, so many institutions, and even we were just talking about it, this idea of all the technological advancements and how we use them to our advantage. But I think about something as simple as basic, as you rightfully said, as food,
yeah,
shelter, clothing, the things that, we need to maintain that amount of attention to all the time, even though we're over here thinking about all of these other different things. So I think that's a really good point. What's working for you guys? What's not working for you guys? What recent, I don't know, initiatives or pilots have kind of delivered promising results for you? And where are, I don't know, maybe you're encountering resistance or structural limitations, slow
yeah,
progress?
yeah. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that is, so we've seen as a university, we've seen an uptick in enrollment over the past couple of years,
Okay.
and we're expecting that to increase even more this year. I think what we've seen, we do have thing that's unique to Yusha University prior to my other institutions I've been a part of, is the population of non-traditional students, and
Right.
so we have a big veterans population. I think a part of that is because of geographically where we lie here in Charleston, Charleston, South Carolina, and so we serve and are continue to try to serve our veterans population very well. I think that is something that this university has been grounded in, and I think we're continuing to think about how we can create um, just an easier process, a more streamlined process for our veterans as they exit the service and want to move into a space of higher education and get those degrees that they may not have had the opportunity to on the front end. And so that's been very helpful to us. Again, just thinking outside of the box, right? With the flight school, that's one of the things that has helped us, and I think we'll see some enrollment bumps just from that being something. Again, only two colleges here in the state of South Carolina. I'm not sure what that national number is. I'm imagining it's not too high,
Right.
but just something that is unique to us. Continually to press forward in how we renovate and build on our campus. So we probably have we have one new building going up, but we're renovating three other buildings. Right. Again, the
Right.
optics of what people see. That's been working for us. I think what's been biggest for us that has worked that I've seen here is it's really just a institution where everybody cares, right? And we are working together across departments, collaborating on a very high level in order to make sure our students are successful. So it's not uncommon for me to have an issue with a student, and then be able to go and talk to their professor and say, "Hey, this is what's going on. How can we help in this magnitude?" And that's happened a number of times over the past year. And it's not like that everywhere, right? You get a lot of
Right.
pushback from some faculty and staff members who are not necessarily in the same vein of like it's really like, hey, my issue is the most important issue. If they're not going to be able to do this and they can't do it, but it's like, hey, there's other things going on. How can we work together in order to help this student be successful and help them chart a path forward that is successful for them and their family, right? Because these 4 years have 40-year implications for a lot of people, right? For
Right.
most, probably it's not everybody, right? It's you're spending 4 years learning um, how to conduct yourself, learning how to do things. The hustle and bustle of getting through 4 years of higher education is a tough thing, right? It's rigorous, but it's preparing you for what's to come in the world. That is not as kind as higher ed can be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is very much so dog eat dog, and so preparing them for that, but being able to work together. So that's been working for us, and I think under our new leadership, our president has been here probably about 2 years now, and he's led some great initiatives that have helped. We're working. One of the things that um, our business department is doing for some of their majors is putting together entrepreneur teams and tasking them with building entrepreneurial ventures throughout the semester, and not just for profit, but also to have that social impact, right? So what is it? What are you going to build that's going to be for profit, but it's also going to have some level of social impact? And we're starting to see those things on the rise here within our nation, right? People that are not just concerned necessarily with making money, but they want to also have a social impact on different areas. And I think that's the foundation of who we are as a private institution, a Christian institution, of saying, hey, we want it's okay to make money, but there also needs to be an asset of a fact of like, how are we helping others in that process?
I feel like that probably also really speaks to the value of your institution and the experience that your institution
Mm-hmm.
specifically brings. And I think that's certainly a conversation I've been having across the board, is really being able to demonstrate unique value of higher ed, but specifically of one's institution, what you're able to kind of offer, not only as a
Yeah.
student, as you said, that has 40-year implications, but to an entire community, because that's what
Yeah.
happens when they're equipped with the right tools. They go out and they impact their communities in such, different and wonderful ways. What's not working for you guys? What's a challenge?
Retention.
Enrollment is good and retention is a struggle. I know.
I think and we are specifically again, this is our makeup. We're a university of opportunity, and so there may be times where we let some students in who maybe are on that borderline,
Right.
but that's what we want to be, because we feel like we can help them get to that place of success, and we want to help them get to that place of success. Our retention rate is increasing, and so we just got to continue to implement different processes, different initiatives to help our students get over those humps and things of that nature. I think one of the bigger things, and like I said, our enrollment is up the last couple of years, but every university is about to run into that enrollment cliff, right? And
Yeah.
so we're all trying to buckle down and prepare for what that looks like here in the next couple of years, and see how we manage against that. Offering different offerings as far as our master's degree program. So we've elevated some of those. We have a great nursing program that is very
Right.
competitive here. Um, but you got to have the students in the seats. And so with lower numbers, I think what works and doesn't work for us is we have a beach close by, so that may hurt our retention. It may get them here, but it hurts our retention because they're hanging out at the beach too much. But I think just that enrollment cliff is one of those things that we're looking at, of like, how do we get over that? And obviously, the financial system, the finances of everything, and
Yeah.
and how that's working. I think that's any institution that is of a smaller build, right? We're about 3,800 students enrolled, and that's undergrad and graduate classes. And so we're not as big as, and we're not a state institution, so we don't get as much funding as the state schools get on
Right.
that piece. And so mending that, and then it's also, we're newer, right? We were founded in 1964, and so you don't have that long lineage of alumni who can donate back into the
Right.
university. And so I can say, like, one of the things our president has made very clear and very important to him is making those connections with community partners to think of different revenue streams for the universities and different partnerships and connections. We just actually started a dual enrollment deal with our local school board here, and so we'll have high school students doing dual enrollment at our university and the high school here for the first time. And so different things of that nature, I think, are what are going to help in the long term. But right now, it's just, we have that brevity of existence, so you don't have that long list up. And coming
Right.
from alumni office, having a long list of alumni is always helpful, right? Because there's always a few people you can reach out to, but you just have a longer list. But then also that enrollment clip that's coming, and trying to manage that.
Yeah, is a challenge, and certainly not just a challenge for you. I think we're seeing this sector wide, obviously, is this really, as I mentioned, this idea that you really have to play up what the value of higher ed is to keep people coming and to
Yeah.
keep them doing it in an environment that is so fraught financially, right?
Mm.
What does the next year ahead look like for you? What are you really thinking about in terms of your strategic priorities over the next 6 to 12 months? What are you kind of putting all your attention towards?
Yeah. Yeah. Really for us, in our area specifically, again, continue to think from a student conduct standpoint. How are we thinking in a redemptive nature, right? I think that's big and something we really want to dive into. Another piece that is at the forefront is our community service piece, right? I think we
Okay.
as an institution traditionally have done well about, probably, maybe missions going overseas and doing. One of the things I've tried to come and implement is how are we serving our local community well, right? So the Tri-County area here in Charleston, South Carolina, how are we serving that population in a unique and special way as a university? And just studies show that that's so important for our students, right? All students across the board, that community service, right, where you're giving and there's nothing to be received back,
Mm-hmm.
has a lot of that intrinsic value, but also helps as you're thinking through what it is you want to do long term, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're finding purpose and passion in life that may have been a hole there prior to kind of that service. And so I think that's really where we're spending a lot of time in that. And then how do we elevate our systems and things of that nature within our student life department in order to make everything easier for our students, right? One of my goals is always, and I tell our students, I'm trying to remove every single barrier I can from
Right.
not succeeding at this university. And the more I can knock down those barriers, one, it gives you less excuses, but it makes it easier for you to matriculate over these 4 or 5 years and become successful in life. And so just trying to figure out what are those, again, being newer here in that first year, learning culture, trying to figure out where are those barriers that are causing our students to have issues, knocking those down and trying to help make it a little bit easier for them.
My last question, and I love to ask this question, I love to see the responses, is always a magic wand question. And some people find it very difficult, and some people find it very hard. So I leave it to
Mhm.
you to decide if this is a super difficult question or super easy. If I were to give you a magic wand right now, and you could wave it around and you could remove any obstacle or barrier that's currently in your path, what would, and that could be, institutional related, this could be, resources, it could be mindset, it could be systems, whatever it is, what would it be that you remove and why? What would that mean for your environment, your ecosystem?
I'm gonna give a very I'm gonna give a very simplistic one. And this is probably the athlete, former coach in me coming out. Um, but I would want a larger tailgate culture at the university.
Really? This is the first time someone's given me this answer. This is a good one.
I, I just and that's a couple reasons. One, it makes because it's football in the South, right? We're in the
Right,
South. It's
right,
football. It is the granddaddy. You know what I mean? It is the top thing. It makes your experience at the university so much better.
right,
Um, and then it also in tune because a lot of universities, not a lot of, but some universities are what they call, I think they call like suitcase schools or weekend schools, whatever, where students
right.
are here during they go home. It keeps students here throughout the weekend. It makes planning around that easier. But it just like going out. There's a school, Ole Miss University,
Yeah.
has one of the biggest tailgate cultures in the nation, and I just love it. I was able to go to a game there a couple years ago, and I was like, this is amazing. And I just if we could have just that tailgate culture of like students loving to go out, pulling out a grill. You could even cater it. I don't care. Just put up some tents, get some lounge chairs, and have it. Just enhances that student experience because it's throughout the entire fall, right? So you're saying 6 or 7 weekends throughout the fall, students are like having a great time every weekend, and it leads to so much more, so much engagement, so much interaction, so many different things that we could do from a student life standpoint to engage our students if that culture was present.
I think that's a great answer because I feel like you can see, and it really ties back to the entire conversation. You can see that
Yeah,
direct line between, tailgate culture to community building to long-term retention to,
absolutely.
donor and alumni engagement and support afterwards, right? Like what you've just done is supported an entire ecosystem to keep the institution going. I think you have a strategy there, Justin.
Yeah. So things that we're working on, I didn't mention this, but tailgate culture, that is one thing I'm trying to do. So I'm trying to get our students bought in. And so with a little bit of increased budget, I'm like, hey, I'll give you some money to buy some food to
Yeah.
just get a tent. Let's just
Yeah.
do it, man.
Yeah.
So
That's a good one. That's a really good one. Before I let you go, is there anything else I neglected to ask you and you were really looking forward to share with me or with us today?
no, I think that's it. I mean, I just press upon all of my higher ed colleagues, man. It's a tough time for us all across the nation. And I mean, we're seeing articles left and right, man, to keep pressing forward. I mean, the reason we do this, right, is for the students, right? And so we
Yeah.
are trying to create trying to create a world where they can be successful. And they're the next generation. And so we have a duty, we have a task to continue to help them fight through these things. We can't just tuck and run, right? When things get tough. We got to stay at it because that's what we're training them up to do. So just stick at it, keep fighting, and big wins are coming.
Big wins are coming. That could be the name of this episode. Big wins are coming. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your experience and your perspective with us today. It's been a super thoughtful and generous conversation to our listeners, our watchers. I hope the episode sparked ideas, affirmed your own experiences, or helped you see a challenge in a new light. If you're a leader in higher ed, you can be in enrollment or marketing, communications, or president, whatever, and you want to contribute to this conversation, we would love to hear from you because this is not just conversation, it's the start of a shared roadmap for the future of this field. So big thank you again, Justin, for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.